Good evening, everyone. It is May 29. Boy, it's going by quickly. Tonight we're going to talk about Jacob versus Nathaniel. Couple weeks ago we talked about Jacob and why he had to marry Leah first. Genesis chapter 25. Now the first came out reddish, which we know as Esau. All of him was like a fur coat. He was hairy as can be, even at birth. And when they named him Esau, afterward his brother came out with his hand holding on to Esau's heel. So Jacob was obviously second born. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Esau was his name until he did one thing. When he traded his birthright for a bowl of red lentil soup, which I think is interesting because he was called red by his family because his hair was red, God pulled away his blessings over Esau. And that's why in Malachi chapter 1, you see it say, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Why? Because to God, the birthright was so beautiful. He wanted Esau to be the father of the nation of Israel. But Jacob traded that right for a bowl of soup. And Jacob then received the honor and the blessing to become the father of Israel and many nations. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was over 60 years old when he fathered them. Meaning of the name Jacob? Jacob is a classic and popular boy name that comes from the Old Testament and means supplanter. Now, supplanter, which is often interpreted as someone who seizes or circumvents or usurps. I think it's interesting because Jacob was the name of one of the disciples. And we know him as James now, but he was actually Yaakov, which was translated as Jacob, until King James came along and made it James after himself. And so, if you look at the three, James, it was Peter, James, and John. And John being the first in line, and Jesus looking down from Mount of Transfiguration. And he says to them, after Peter says, let us build you a tabernacle, he says to John, James, and Peter, he says, how little you understand. You don't know what this means. But he was looking down at John, meaning grace. His name means grace. James, Jacob, meaning to replace or supplant or usurp. And then Peter, whose name was Cephas, which is the rock, the law. So he's looking down at these three saying, grace replaces the law. Yehoshua saw Nathanael coming toward him. He said, look, a true Israelite, there's nothing false in him. Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Yehoshua answered, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Rabbi Nathanael answered, you are Ben Elohim. You are the king of Israel. Now, Nathanael was obviously a righteous man who God saw him under a fig tree and called for him to come through his friend Philip. And it makes Nathanael was a righteous man called by God. Jacob was a fallen man who became righteous and called by God. So they are very different in the way they started their journey with Christ. Now, you can find us, as you know, but please tell your friends, streetlightgr.com. Facebook, or YouTube at Streetlight Bible Study 4006. And be blessed. Please always remember to be a blessing, especially in these times. Very difficult to treat people well when they don't treat us well, but we have to. Can't win over disciples with sour milk. So be a blessing. Thank you for tuning in.